Football. A game of skill, passion, and integrity? Well, occasionally. There was that time Robbie Fowler told the ref it wasn't a foul after he won a penalty against Arsenal. Then again, the rebound got put in by Jason McAteer. Let's start that again. Football. A game of skill, passion, and opportunists. Enter Jimmy Gauld, a Scottish footballer whose career was as unremarkable as it was long. But by the time he fully left the game, he was more infamous than many legends. Not for his performances on the pitch, but for single-handedly orchestrating one of the greatest scandals in English football history. If football is the beautiful game, then Jimmy Gould's match-fixing ring was its ugly truth. But before we dive into the scandal, let's rewind to Jimmy's origin story. Born on May 9th, 1931, in Aberdeen, James Jimmy Gauld exhibited athletic prowess from a young age, particularly in sprinting, a skill that later defined his football career. He began his football journey with Aberdeen, where his speed and versatility across the forward line earned him a spot on the Scottish youth side. Despite this early promise though, Gauld failed to make a senior appearance and was released by the club in 1950. After spells in the Highland League with Huntly and Elgin City, Gauld decided to try his luck across the Irish Sea, joining Waterford in the League of Ireland. It was here that he truly shone, becoming the league's top scorer with 30 goals in a single league season. Gould's goal scoring in Ireland earned him a move to Charlton Athletic in the English First Division. Jimmy continued his impressive form before getting a big money move to Everton during the 1956-1957 season. But after criticism from teammates of his playing style, as well as recurring injuries and sickness, Gauld was given permission to leave the club after just one season and signed for 3rd Division Plymouth Argyle to rebuild his career. At Plymouth, he returned to goal-scoring ways, becoming a key part of their promotion to the 2nd Division, before a move to Swindon Town ahead of the 1959-1960 season. This is where Jimmy's tale takes somewhat of a dark turn. At the end of the season, rumours of match-fixing began swirling around Gauld, particularly after a suspicious 6-1 loss to Port Vale in April 1960. 4 years later, Gauld openly admitted Swindon were comfortably in the middle of the league, with nothing to win or lose, so it didn't seem such a terrible thing to do. The problem for Jimmy being, it was a terrible thing to do. At Swindon, Gauld had discovered the lucrative potential of persuading teammates to throw matches. In an era when football's maximum wage rule capped players' earnings at £20 a week, Gauld and his pals in the lower tiers of the football pyramid could earn substantially more from betting. Swindon released Gauld at the end of the season, but despite the growing suspicions, his match-fixing exploits hadn't yet come to light publicly. After a very brief spell north of the border, he was back in the Football League with Mansfield Town. Then, in 1961, disaster struck. Gauld suffered a career-ending leg injury. In the days before modern sports medicine, a serious injury like that was often the end of the line. Not of Jimmy's life, but his football career. For Gauld, it was a bitter pill to swallow. Football had been his livelihood, and now, barely into his 30s, he was forced to retire. But Jimmy wasn't the type to fade quietly into obscurity. Instead, he pivoted to a new venture. Now, for most retired players, the next steps involve coaching badges, punditry gigs, or a quiet life shilling cryptocurrencies. Not Jimmy. No, Jimmy Gauld decided to go all in on a slightly less conventional post-football career: match-fixing. In 1962, Gauld reached out to an old teammate from his Swindon days, David Lane, who was then playing for Sheffield Wednesday. He convinced his former colleague to throw a game against Ipswich Town on December 1st, 1962. And with Gauld pulling the strings, Lane brought in 2 teammates, Peter Swan and future England international Tony Kaye, into the match-fixing shenanigans. The 3 players all bet against their own team, and Wednesday duly lost 2-0, with Kaye ironically named man of the match. Peter Swan later reflected on the Ipswich match with The Times in 2006. "We lost the game fair and square," he said, "but I still don't know what I'd have done if we'd been winning. It would have been easy for me to give away a penalty, or even score an own goal. Who knows?" Nick Johnson, who co-wrote Swan's autobiography Setting the Record Straight, said in an interview with The Athletic, "They insist to this day they did nothing to affect the outcome. It was a one-off, thinking they weren't going to get a win bonus because they never beat Ipswich. It shows how that massive error of judgment cost them dearly." While the Sheffield Wednesday trio were never involved in match fixing again, Gauld wasn't content with just the one fixed match. Using his network of contacts, he orchestrated fixes for 2 other games on the same day: Lincoln City vs Brentford and Oldham Athletic vs York City. The scale of the operation demonstrated Gould's ambition and the vulnerability of football at the time, particularly in the lower leagues where scrutiny was minimal. Much like in my video covering the 1915 match fixing scandal, open it in a new tab, Gauld had clocked on to the fact that not many players were exactly swimming in cash. Many were open to a little extra incentive to help them secure a specific result. Gauld saw an opportunity and he seized it. Jimmy recruited players he knew and trusted. With promises of easy money, he persuaded them to throw matches or manipulate results. His network grew, spanning multiple clubs and leagues. By 1963, Gauld was running a full-blown match-fixing scandal, thought to involve dozens of footballers, fixing up to 3 games a week like he was some kind of human betting calculator thing. Jimmy and his associates were earning thousands of pounds through bribing players, and the bookies were getting taken to the cleaners, which they weren't too pleased about. Trends of suspicious betting turned whispers of match-fixing in the English game into shouts. And then, it all came crumbling down for Jimmy. In the summer of 1963, the Sunday People newspaper published a number of pieces exposing instances of match-fixing in the 3rd and 4th divisions of English football. The then Football League secretary, Alan Hardaker, ridiculed the suggestion of matches being fixed, telling the newspaper, "There is no bribery in football. It's unthinkable." Unfortunately for Alan, it was indeed thinkable. Journalists Mike Gabbett and Peter Campling have meticulously uncovered evidence of multiple instances of match fixing. From player testimony to proofs of payment, the People went on to reveal on August 11, 1963, the orchestrator of the fixed games as Jimmy Gauld, and over the following weeks released more details of how Gould's ring had infiltrated the lower levels of English football. The game was up for Jimmy. The FA held a subsequent inquiry into the accusations of match fixing, and as a result, Gauld was fined £60 and banned from taking part in football at any level. However, Jimmy wasn't done quite yet. Jimmy told the journalists Gabbett and Campling that the story they had run in the Sunday People was only the tip of the iceberg, and that his match-fixing syndicate stretched all the way to the top levels of the game. He sold his exclusive story to the People for the sum of 7,000 old-timey pounds, which is around 130,000 in modern futuristic pounds, and over the course of the following months set about implicating his match-fixing accomplices by secretly recording them one by one. In April 1964, the People published its exposé beneath the headline, "The Sports Scandal of the Century." December 1st, 1962. Soccer fans and all who cherish the good name of British sport should write that date in bold, black letters. It was a day of infamy for British football. That was the day when the ugly cancer of corruption spread its evil growth right up to the highest strata of football. Setting aside the fact that Michael Gabbett was pretty good at hamming things up, the story was a bombshell. The People not only implicated several players, such as Peter Swan and Tony Kay, but blew the lid on how far the match-fixing ring had delved. Every level of the English game had been touched by Jimmy's syndicate, with many players accepting bribes in exchange for losses on multiple occasions. Even 2 bookmakers, Joe Hancock and Howard Moss, were in cahoots with Jimmy Gauld. If you can't beat them, join them, I guess. The fallout was immense, with the whole investigation ending up in court. 33 players were prosecuted, with 10 players, including Kay and Swan, found guilty of conspiracy to defraud bookmakers and saw jail time for their involvement. As well as this, they were given bans from being able to play football by the FA. Gauld was sentenced to 4 years in prison and fined an eye-watering £5,000. The judge, clearly unimpressed by Jimmy's entrepreneurial spirit, declared, "It is my duty to make it clear to all evil-minded people in all branches of sport that this is a serious crime." Again, may sound a little melodramatic, but such was the time. So, what can we learn from Jimmy Gould's story? On the surface, it's a cautionary tale about greed and the corruption of sport. But it's also a reminder of the vulnerabilities that existed in football's early professional era. Players weren't multi-millionaires. They were working men with bills to pay, and when someone like Gauld came along offering quick cash, it was all too easy to say yes. It's important to remember that Gauld ruined people's lives. Aside from the jail time and lost income, before the exposé, players like Tony Kay and Peter Swan were hotly tipped for the England World Cup squad in 1966. Tony Kay in particular was instrumental in Everton's 1963 league title win, and he was described as being the backbone of the side by Frank McGee of the Mirror after his first England cap against Switzerland. Had it not been for Jimmy Gauld, we may today associate the names Kay and Swan with that '66 England World Cup winning squad. As part of the fallout of the investigation into Jimmy Gould's syndicate, bookmaker Joe Hancock took his own life after being questioned by the police about the match fixing. Today, Gould's name is a footnote in football history, but the scandal he orchestrated left an indelible mark on the sport. While it didn't immediately lead to sweeping changes, it shattered the illusion that football at the top level was immune to corruption. The scandal forced football authorities to take the issue of integrity more seriously, laying the groundwork for long-term vigilance. The game is cleaner now. Well, with the exception of the Italian match-fixing scandal, or the Greek match-fixing scandal, or the other Italian match-fixing scandal, or the 2013 English match-fixing scandal, or the Turkish one in 2011, Lebanon also in 2011, South Korea also in 2011, all of the Chinese ones, all of the Brazilian ones, the other Italian scandal with the name I can't pronounce. All of Europe was apparently at it in 2009 and 2013. Wait a minute, how many Italian ones were there? Oh, it. Might as well watch the darts instead.